to The Collective, where every conversation ignites a new perspective. Join us as we delve into the journeys of remarkable individuals, explore the art of growth, resilience, and the power of a shared mission as we strive to be better together. Hey everybody, welcome back to The Gold Mine. We have another fantastic show for you planned out today. We got the return of Pat Miller once again. Good to have you on, brother, as we're going to have you again on Friday, and that's going to be pretty sweet. And as stoked as I am, y'all should be stoked too. Make sure you're doing the things. Like the show, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, do all that good stuff. Get your emails whenever we go live, which of course, Wednesdays for The Gold Mine and Fridays for The Collective. If you have any thoughts, questions, comments, anything at all, by all means, put them up in the comment section. We can hit those throughout the show. And of course, if you have not yet, make sure that you are signed up for the Reinforcement Loop. That is our weekly newsletter. It goes out every Sunday, except for last Sunday due to a website issue, but we got it sorted for Monday and we are good to go. So make sure you are part of the loop, get signed up, and that we get a little bit of Shaun brain candy every week, more than just what's on the show. Other than that, let's get a quick little intro, run it down, and then we can get right into the combo. Pat, hit us up. What do you got?
Pat Miller, 20 years in the armed forces, 8 of which was special operations, special boat teams, and CSOR. Now I'm out. I'm being a military advisor and armorer on film sets, currently working on a project, as well as a professional photographer. I just shot Formula Drift, which was super rad, and that's about it.
Bam. I love it, man. I saw a couple of your photos right before we got started, and I'm stoked to see some more because, man, you got a great eye. Shaun, how's life out in the mountains?
Great eye, but what the heck, bro? Where was your World Photography Day photo? You know what I'm saying? I,
I
I,
see you
I
posted
can't
one up,
help
and I
it.
was like,
I can't
yeah,
help it. I
yeah.
know. I know. Let's just move right on.
Shaun's in a poking mood. There's going to be some chest poking today. I like it. This is awesome. So today I wanted to get into Aspiration. This is one of the ones that I had 3 videos set up for this one, and it was the first video that I wanted to use. Was unable to get it on my computer right now, so we're not going to go into that one. But I want to get your guys' thoughts. Aspiration, to aspire, to look beyond, to move towards the peak. What are your guys' first thoughts on Aspiration? Pat?
Aspiration is a interesting, fun topic, I think. To literally breathe in, to aspire, right? So to breathe something into a project or into your life or into goals or into your being, I think is a pretty awesome metaphor. And I think it'll be a fun one to dive into. I think we've all aspired. Like there's differences between ambition and aspiring. Aspiring is so much more, and I think it can constantly evolve and be, it just goes. I don't know where to go with that, but I know that I'm aspiring all the time, but aspiring to be a better photographer, a better man, a better athlete, whatever it is.
That's a good way to start it off, Shaun. What are your first thoughts?
Well, like Pat, I think Pat probably took a look at the etymology of aspire or aspiration because he pulled up the idea of breathing, and that is literally the start or the etymology of aspire. It started with the Latin term to refer to breathing, but then, of course, it evolved into the 14, 15, 1600s until it became sort of wanting something or trying to enter into a new life of moreness. But actually, Pat said it really well, breathing something into life. I didn't see that anywhere in any reference to the etymology, but that really is working for my head, breathing something into life. And the reason it works really well for me is because I feel that the things that I want to accomplish in life or the things that I aspire to achieve actually take a lot of oxygen. And it's not just talking, by the way, but it takes a lot of velocity, a lot of momentum, and that velocity requires a lot of oxygen uptake. I mean, if you're not working your oxygen or your respiratory system hard, are you even aspiring to do anything? Because it doesn't take much breath to just sit on a couch and dream. And so the
Mm.
oxygen uptake rate kind of works for me in the sense of breathing something into life. I really dig it.
I like that a lot. The aspiration to breathe into life. That's a great way to put this. Quick little comment, Dan C. Good morning, gentlemen. Time for another day of ass kickery. Good to see you, buddy. And so let's dive into this idea of breathing something into life. And I mean, the collective is a great example, but also the ideas, the little things that click into our head of going like, I want to be in special operations, or I want to create a podcast, or I want to be a photographer, or I want to. Do you think those are like little sparkles, or do you think that that's something triggers us? Like, do you think it's an immaculate conception kind of deal, or we just come up with this, like, oh yeah, I want to do that, or do you think it's a more of a subtle information base? We've seen a bunch of other things and go, oh, we're gonna put that together and then shoot for the stars. What do you think, Pat?
It's interesting to use the word sparkle because I kind of thought about spark, right? Like you think about like a fire, get that ember going. You're breathing into it. I'm going to stick to this theme. You know, you're breathing onto that ember, blowing onto it, getting it to become more and more and more. Because if you don't, like it just fizzles out. And I mean, we have a lot of like I don't know. I'm guilty of it. You know, like, ooh, I want to do this or I want to do that. Whether it's a new hobby or profession or whatever. But unless I'm actually actively putting myself into it and consuming it and trying to build it up into like an actual fire more than a spark, then it's not aspiration. It's just a want or a whim or whatever. It's an interest versus something that I'm actually trying to fucking ignite and can like make into a fire.
We're gonna watch the language though. I'm watching you. I'm watching you.
Oh, I
One
think
slipped
you're
out there. Yeah. Sean, what do you think?
It was just a tiny one. I hardly heard it. I'll say this, that I did it this morning. Some aspirational stuff, by the way. Before you put out what the podcast topic was, I had no idea that we're going to be talking about aspiration. Before I went down into the basement and started slapping the heavy bag around. And if you haven't already seen that video, boys, it's worthwhile watching because you get to see me be like really disoriented and quite nauseous. I'm actually still a bit nauseous from the heavy bag this morning because what I'd done is, one of the things that we're supposed to do, I believe, as humans is inspire other people. And I'm not talking about that lame freaking inspiring or sorry, inspirer stuff. I'm talking about inspiring. So I don't want to be an influencer per se. I just want to influence people to make better decisions or influence people to seek more in life. I am trying to be inspiring, but I don't want to be called an inspirer. I don't want to be labeled. I just want to think a certain way. And the way I think is I'm trying to inspire people to seek more. So, in that attempt to inspire this morning, as I was drinking my coffee, staring out the mountains, thinking, what am I going to do this morning that is redonkulous for me? And for someone else out there who'll see me do it, maybe they'll pick up what I'm putting down as an aspirational idea. And so, what I did was I threw on this blindfold and sat down in a chair, in an office chair, and spun it around as fast as I could. And then I just pulled up the blindfold and found the heavy bag and then frickin' slammed it with a front thrust kick. And I actually mentioned your name, Chance Burles, because you'd asked me several days ago about what's my go-to move. And I said, yeah, it really depends. But the one that I feel most comfortable with, if I've got to move someone out of my way to get to something that needs to be taken care of, like maybe it's a hostage, maybe it's my dog, maybe it's a deal on a donut. If I need to move someone out of my way, it's front thrust kick all day, every day. It's my move. But front thrust kick doesn't work for everything. So sometimes it's side kick, sometimes it's this, sometimes it's that, sometimes I'll just walk around them. Doesn't much matter the details. The idea being that you'd ask me what my go-to is. So I thought maybe I'll just throw that out to the troops as a inspiration for them to figure out what is their move, what's their go-to, what would they do in this moment. But then the aspirational piece was me spinning around like a lunatic, almost vomiting and kind of staggering around as I hit the heavy bag. Someone out there will see that video today and shake their head and never touch it with a 10-foot pole. But someone will see it and think, man, I wonder if I can do that. And they probably can't. Screw you, you loser. Probably can't. So pick up what I'm putting down and go for it. That's the challenge, you loser. So poke, poke, poke. Go give it a try as an aspirational effort to see if you've got it, if you got the jam. And you probably don't. But give it a try.
I'm liking this. And so I got this thing stuck in my head now because you're talking about inspire. To inspire is like to take in, right? If I'm going to breathe in somebody else is going to do something, I'm going to be inspired by it. Oh, sweet. And then I'm going to aspire that thing into life. And so I'm really liking this breath metaphor going back and forth. But um, to act in a way that we get to um, uh, give benefit to other people, let's say, and as well as our own lives, would be to inspire. But when we want to aspire, when we want to seek something larger or something more than what we have, then we usually have to start, as you said, Pat, as a little ember, as a little spark, and then you have to blow into that. I got this image of bellows on a forge, right? If you want something to blow hot, you got to be able to sit there and work the bellows to get it moving, get the flame built up. And I'm wondering, do you think that that is an accurate representation of how we build up ideas, how we build up our own aspirations when we want to do something? And I'm going to go do that, and then we got to sit and pump the bellows for a while before we can get to those things. No, what do you got, Shaun?
I like the idea. I just don't like the terminology. And here's why. Because when someone thinks bellow in their mind, like you say the word, and someone's going to see a bellow in their mind, like they're going to create the imagery. And then when you say spark, they're going to see a little spark. And so when you think of the bellow, doing just one bellow pump, you know where that spark's going to end up? On your neighbor's roof. And so, like, the idea of a bellow needs to be attached to the idea that you've got to control your velocity, you've got to control your input in order to get the output. So let's pretend for a moment, as I use the example of me spinning around with the blindfold. If someone has never done a front thrust kick in their life, sees that video, jumps in a chair, throws a blindfold on, starts spinning around like a lunatic, that's the bellow. They never started with this first. They went straight to the bellow. And so I think, like all things in life, if you want to explore something new, if you have an idea in mind, or something is being aspirational to you and you're going to pursue the new thing, you can't start at a 10 out of 10 if you haven't tried 1 out of 10 first. Certainly not in things where you have blindfolds and chairs spinning around. So if it's something that has no consequence, and believe me, like there's a moment this morning where I almost fell over and broke my freaking face. And so there's consequences in anything that you enter into that is brand spanking new, that you know nothing about. So it's your job to control the consequences, as it were, mitigate the damage. So the bellows in this case is a 10 out of 10 damage rather than a 1 out of 10 damage. So I just want to throw that bellow idea out that, these choices where you randomly grab a tool and randomly apply against the aspirational moment, you've kind of got to strategically think about what you're doing when you're reaching for the thing.
I like this. And Pat, I'm going to come to you in a second, but I had this thing click in my head. There was a reel slash motivational thing going around for a while. It was like, most people over 30 will never sprint again in their lives, and therefore we should make sure that we're all running and playing and all these things. But when that quote came out, I saw a lot of videos of people just like going to sprint down the road because all of a sudden they just needed to sprint down the road. But like, I'm over 30, I gotta go sprint somewhere. And I like your application of this, Shaun, because there were a lot of people that just biffed it straight into the ground, not being able to run, and because they hadn't in years. And you're right, you gotta softly blow on an ember to get it hot enough so that it sparks something else to then build on it before you just start pumping bellows. Great point, Pat. What do you got?
Yeah, it's funny. I don't want to like zigzag this too much, but I mean, that inspiring, inspiration, all that stuff. Um, it could be on subjects or things in your life that have kind of fallen off the radar. Like you take the sprinting, for example. Maybe you enjoyed sprinting and doing plyo and all that stuff like that. Um, you still have to bring that ember back up, and like kind of Sean's analogy, or you're snapping Achilles tendons and you're never going to sprint ever again, probably in your life. So there is, there's a caution there, but it's also neat because it's like, I don't know. Well, I'll take mountain biking, for example. There was a point where I did mountain bike for almost 2.5 years. Um, and I had to blow back on that ember. The motivation, the fire was inside me to ride hard and fast, but the bike underneath me didn't feel connected and didn't feel like I was riding it the way that I should. And that took a little bit of time, and I had to give myself a break because I wanted that raging fire to be back underneath me and be able to ride like a madman, flow through trails, and not even like even the bike would just be an extension of me. Instead, it was this new foreign tool again underneath me, even though I had skill and it was like, like riding a bike in a, metaphorical sense. Um, it was something that I had to learn again, and I had to like breathe the fire back into the whole passion of mountain biking.
I found something very similar with horses. Excuse me. The When I first got back into riding again, I rode as a kid a little bit, and then did not ride at all while I was in the military, and a little bit beyond that. And then I had to get back into it. And getting back in a saddle was weird at first, and then you slowly build up that fire again. You slowly start to unlock the the chains that you have to where you're sitting and how you're sitting and all these pieces to connect with the animal, et cetera, et cetera. It's a great point. Sean, you got any thoughts?
Just one more addition, and I mean, it should be self-evident, but I want to make sure that we're not like letting this one dangle out there invisibly. Chance, whether it's riding a horse, or Pat, whether it's riding a bike or whatever I'm doing, all of these things that somehow over a period of time kind of maybe ebb and flow in our lives. So we're talking about it diminishes itself in a phase of our life where we're not riding as much. Um, the idea being that I feel anyway that the ember or the fire comes back much faster than it does when you're entering into a new aspirational phase of the brand new thing that you know nothing about. And so for me, if I take a little bit of time off the bike, however long that means, as the moment that I get back on the bike, I've got a pretty fast raging fire. Like within a matter of like this, my fire is bomb firing. So that's an idea that everyone should hang on to. And I want to break it down even into the micro level, so that we're not just talking about like phases of life, like every 10 years you're supposed to blow on a spark and it's supposed to come back up, and then it dwindles down. That is not the case for me at the micro level. And so, as an example, if I'm writing, I might write for 2, 3 days like super duper hardcore and quote unquote get it out of my system. And then I'll need a day or 2 or 3 or maybe 4 to recharge again. And then frickin' pour gasoline on that fire. And so sometimes in life, the idea being that the fire itself like spikes up to a bonfire, and then you let all the fuel burn down. And then you go start looking for some more wood to just throw on that little spark again, to then bam, I'm going for another bonfire again. I'm going to get a bonfire every week in writing as the example. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm tracking that. I think I want to kind of add to this, and it goes into the video that I want to put on here. I'm going to put in a second, but a lot of times I say I spent a lot of years thinking that if I just throw more fuel on, the fire will continue to burn, without looking at what the fuel was, without looking at what types of wood, whether it was wet, whether it was not, et cetera, et cetera. I was just throwing stuff on the fire, trying to keep it running, and through that lack of focus, through that without taking the time to figure that out, is where I lost my fire. I lost that. I let it burn down to coals. I smothered it with extra stuff, and then I went into the cycle of burnout and all these other things. But so I like that metaphor, Sean. I dig it.
Well, here's another little add to the metaphor. While you were so busy putting fuel on the fire, everyone knows how this works. You're going to start seeing it in your mind's eye as I describe it. You start your fire, you grab your log, you throw it on, it's burning, and then you go look for another log. Let's go 7 hours later. You're now having to walk 400 meters to get another good log. And then 12 hours later, you're having to walk 600 meters to go get another log. Then your life is consumed. The fire consumes your life because you're so busy putting logs on the fire. You know what you never did while you were like throwing all those logs on the fire? You never sat down in your lawn chair and enjoyed the fire. You never enjoyed you never heard the crackle. You never saw the dancing flames. And we know, in fact, I think maybe Pat had mentioned this, or I don't recall correctly, but someone had mentioned how we connect with flames or fire at a primeval level, almost a primal level, where our brains actually synchronize with the flames. Our brains synchronize with the moment in a way that really bam snaps us into the moment. And so while you were being aspirational to have the world's biggest bonfire, perhaps, you weren't getting an opportunity to enjoy the fruits of your labor, dial into the moment, and then perhaps as you were enjoying those flames, see another aspirational future that somehow had you maybe letting that fire burn down to go start another fire on top of a mountain peak. I don't know, but you see where I'm going.
Yeah, I dig that. And I think without taking the time to sit in front of the fire, you never see the dancing of the flames itself. You never see the smoke, the shapes that appear in the smoke. You never see any of those things. I like this a lot. We actually got a comment on the Instagram site, Operation Pegasus Foundation. Tim, what's going on, buddy? Good to see you. How about using that thought with getting back into jumping, just doing it, not going full on back into it? And I think this is a good point for sure. In that a lot of times when we get back into something, we want to get all the way back into the thing. I want to be at the level that I was at rather than I just want to enjoy it. I want to spend my time either sitting at the fire, but like you said, I want to have 7 bonfires all at the same time, and I have to have do we have to do that, or what do you guys think, Pat?
It's actually awesome that Tim chimed in there because he was on my first jump after almost 8 years of not jumping. So I didn't jump for 8 years. He came on my coach jump to see if I could just level up and get back into the sport. And of course, that fire, that ember is back inside me. Like I'm looking at, when's the next time can I get up to Campbell River to jump again? Which is funny because I purposely left money on the bar per se. Like I left money at the drop zone to pay for my jump. So I kind of have to go back, you know what I mean? So I have these little tricks, I guess, that will motivate me to go back to continue jumping. Like there's no aspiration to be a wingsuit jumper or anything crazy, but I do want to keep that skill and that fun and that fire alive. And it doesn't have to be a bonfire. I love this whole analogy of fires because you can enjoy multiple small fires, or you can dedicate yourself to just building that one big bonfire where you are just hunting for fuel and continuing to throw it on the fire and make it burn. The fire analogy is great right now, I think.
Yeah, I'm digging it quite a bit, and not only that, but there's a simple pleasure in having a small fire in front of you that you can just kind of feed and allow it to maintain itself rather than having a massive bonfire that because it takes a lot of work, right? To keep a really big fire running, as Shaun said, you need a lot of wood. You need a lot of good wood that's going to burn well, that's going to be split right. That is collection, that is splitting, that is how you lay it out on the fire, how you put it in, etc. There's a lot of work involved in that. Whereas when you have a kind of a nice small fire for just you in front of you, it's a lot simpler to take care of. Shaun, what do you got?
It's because you guys were talking about the bonfires, and I did reference sort of building a bonfire up on a mountain. I just want to close the loop on it. This will take us in a bit of a different direction, but I think it's worth mentioning because it will inspire someone out there for sure. When you build a bonfire up on a mountain, if you're just building it all by yourself, then, well, you're on a mountain with a good view and a fire. But let's flash back to the Lord of the Rings. You know the moment where they're lighting the bonfires up on the mountain peaks, and then you see another bonfire light in another mountain peak, 100 clicks away or whatever. Then bam, and then bam, and then bam, and the Rohirrim are signaling with the bonfires that, it's go time. And so that's what I thought about. If you are in, if you have an aspiration that you want to pursue, and let's call it your aspiration is you're going to build the best bonfire on top of the tallest mountain peak in the world. Here you go. Well, now it's a solo journey and it's a solo sort of life to some degree. No one's going to carry firewood up for you. You're going to carry it up yourself, or you're going to find it. Then you're going to build your bonfire. Then you're standing in front of your bonfire all by yourself, clapping and cheering yourself. But when you get a purpose, when you get a mission, when you get something bigger than yourself, where it's an effort by many, let's call it save the world from the orcs and trolls, when you're involved in a group aspirational mission, like building bonfires on the world's mountain peaks in order to signal the problem, you'll frickin' try harder, man. Like when it's a solo journey, you'll go hard. But when it's a team journey, you'll go harder. And so there'll come a point where you're building your little fire up on your mountain all by yourself, and you'll probably want to tap out. You'll be up there 47 days and think, oh, this is kind of lame. The signal hasn't, I don't have to light my fire because I'm all by myself and actually don't know what the signal's about. But if you're in that Lord of the Rings moment, you'll stand next to that not lit bonfire for the rest of your life, freezing your ass off with nothing to do other than focus on the mission at hand, which is keep an eye open for the fire to your left and right in case they light those bonfires. Once you're part of something bigger than yourself, the aspirational piece somehow feels a bit easier.
Mm. Go
I
ahead,
got
Pat. What do you got?
Yeah, I was just going to add to that because I mean, again, how serendipitous that Operation Pegasus chimed in here because if it wasn't for that organization, for that collective, for that bonfire per se to be lit and be out in there, out in the social media space, out in the whole world, I probably would have just kept not renewing my jump ticket. I would have just let it go and probably let it die even. And that kind of metaphorical bonfire of their organization, seeing what they wear and all that stuff, just being able to go up and hang out with dudes and throw myself out of a plane again and just be part of a bigger collective inspired me to go jump.
This is beautiful because Tim just jumped in on the Instagram side again and said, "Love that group aspirations." And Dan C jumped in here and said, "My son just went and did it. He's now heading to Arizona to get his A license. So well done him." And this, so I want to touch on this because the 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 bonfires on top of the mountains. It is a call to arms. It is a stand to like, hey, things have to happen right now. Make a decision. But that doesn't happen in real life very often, where you get that straight up, make a call. You either come and help or you don't. What are you going to do? And that is, it's a tough part with a lot of aspirations because there's not a finite point to it. There's not a timeline. There's not a lot of these things where, oh, I want to be a great painter. I could do that tomorrow, right? There's no fire being lit underneath somebody to get them moving. And I'm wondering what your guys' thoughts on not just building that fire within yourself, but to your point, Shaun, how to then push it to get other people to see that call to action and go, man, you know what? You're absolutely right. I should blindfold myself, spin around in a chair, and try and kick a bag. Right? Like, that is. How do we get from A to B? What do you guys think, Shaun? I'm going to hit you first.
Well, I don't know because I've been trying for nearly 3 years on social media. I really don't know. I, and because I don't know, I've tried it a bunch of different ways. And what I did today, this morning, I'll do it different tomorrow. And it won't be because I'm trying to solve the Rubik's Cube of trying to inspire the internet or create aspirations in others. That's only a small part of it. What I am doing is I'm doing me, my life today. What you'll see on Instawebs is what I'll do today, irrespective of the Instawebs. And tomorrow will be the same. Whatever I do on the bag, whatever I do on my bike, whatever I drink, whatever I eat, whatever I read, all of the things won't be contrived. It won't be inauthentic. It'll be Shaun doing Shaun. And so the trick, I believe, for me is to do all of that authentically, but then somehow make it palatable for others. And I've tried all the ways, I think. And I've been a jerk. I've been a good guy. I've been a hard ass. I've been encouraging. I've tried a bunch of different ways, and it's not because I'm trying to find just the way. I just keep moving it around, finding different ways, just like the start of this podcast today, this morning. I was poking a little bit, saying, give it a try, you losers. Whatever. It's not that I'm being mean spirited, but I know that there'll be someone out there who will hear that and think, what? Did he just call me a loser? That guy's a jerk anyway. I'm going to go do it. Whatever, man. The outcome is what I'm seeking. The outcome is what I pursue. And there's so many different ways to skin a cat, or there's so many different ways to get an outcome that I love playing with all the different ways. Doesn't mean I do it right. I just think that I don't have it solved.
Dig it. Pat, you got any thoughts?
Not really. I mean, I'm letting a lot of this kind of just flow through the brain. It was funny because Shaun does these interesting videos of spinning around or kneeling blindfolded on Swiss balls or whatever it is. Um, for me personally, it's not like, oh, I need to go get a Swiss ball and put a blindfold on. The message though comes across as, hey, go try something that you haven't tried before, or look at, trying to implement an angle into your practice or your life, to help solve the puzzle, which I love those kind of like messages, right? And that again, it inspires me to do something, slightly different, or add a tweak, or add a handicap to something to try to pull something more out of what I'm trying to do, whether it's photography or my mountain bike or daily life.
I wonder then, do you think that perhaps our idea of aspiration is too large? Because I think for most people, when you start talking about aspirations or you start talking about bonfires on the mountain, that's what they think of is like huge goals, big things. How do I do this? I'm going to do that thing. I'm going to be a special operator. I'm going to make it through one of the eco challenges, whatever it is. They want to do something large. But perhaps maybe we need to start looking at as aspiration as a smaller thing, as I'm going to aspire to be a better person. I'm going to be aspire to be a better father. I'm going to aspire to make sure that I make my bed every day. Like as a start. What do you guys think, Shaun?
No.
No, I
That
see
doesn't
both of you
work for
guys are
me.
like, no, no, no.
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 No, I mean, aspiration is something completely different, something that is almost dreamy. Maybe we should have done that right at the start, is categorized the extent of aspiration. And so when I think of when I aspire to be something, it's so far out of my reach. I feel internally embarrassed that I'm even thinking it. I feel like already my imposter syndrome is bonkers, as I've already established a long time ago. But when my imposter syndrome feels the redonk aspiration ideas bubbling up, like I'm embarrassed to be me sometimes because it just does not feel like that is even in a dream world possible. But I've just thought that I can do it. And so that constant tension between, you know what? I think I'm going to do it. But then the other tension being, that is so like not in my wheelhouse and I will never be able to do that. And why would I even think that I can do that? I love that tension, man. The pull between those two states of embarrassed to think it while believing that you can actually make it happen. That's the Harry Potter stuff, man. That's the mystical beauty of the universe where you think you're a wizard, where you don't have a wand, but you can see the outcome as like the mega wizard. I love that tension, man. But holy cronkamole, it is unsettling to have a massive, redonkulous, impossible aspiration and then start freaking chasing it.
Dig it, Pat. What do you got?
Yeah, no, the whole idea of an aspiration should be, I think, larger than anything. Most of the time, that aspiration will lead to small improvements in your life, whether it is making your bed or being a better man or whatever. Like I aspire to be a better photographer, right? Um, when I think about that, like that aspiration has so many large chunks to it, right? I'm not there yet. I'm aspiring to be it. I'm not aspiring to go up to it. Um, like I want people to stop and look at my photo. Like I want it to be like something that literally stops you. You look at it and you get sucked into a time machine and you're like, I'm in that moment. I don't believe that I'm quite there yet. And of course, like, the imposter syndrome kicks in and all those things like that. Probably one of the reasons I don't post as much. But that's where I'm aspiring to be. Like, I want to be, like a Red Bull Illume winner. I want to stand next to a lot of those guys that are doing that cool stuff. I would love to see my shots, like in a big show like that. And right now I'm like, it's Instagram and it's small things and small projects and selling prints. But that doesn't take away from that aspiration to be something so much more, you know. And I think that, when you aspire for something super large, super big, whether it's a selection or doing a pursuit that you truly believe in, all the little things of life should, if you're doing it right, follow along. You should be a better person. You should be a better part of your community. You should be a better part of that world. Better, family guy, whatever it is.
And I agree with you. It should happen, but it doesn't. Like, there's lots of people that aspire to do things and become jerks through doing that thing, or they get so focused on the task that they neglect the other pieces of it. What do you got?
But then, is that ambition or is that aspiration? Because I notice that people, when they go for when it's ambitious, when they have a huge amount of ambition, like we all have, but when it's pure ambition, it's about getting that next promotion, that next thing. I don't care. I'm going to stomp on top of everyone to get that one thing. You know what I mean? Versus aspiring to be better, or aspiring to be something more.
Tim jumped in here on the Instagram side and says, from Operation Pegasus Foundation, I should be more specific on that. He said, "You can never be perfect. I am a master sniper by title, not a master of snipers," which is a great point. Shaun, you got any thoughts?
Yeah, so to play directly off of Tim's point, I recently said that I was the first in Canadian history, and this is just a tiny, tiny little node in history. It's almost inconsequential. But I was the first ever operational or special operations operational sniper deck commander that was a army qualified and special operations qualified sniper. So like it's kind of a bizarre little confluence of things, first, and first. But that trifecta, when it's combined, is first in history. But that doesn't really make the history books. It just means that I was first. It doesn't mean I was the best. And so by being the first, you are never the best. You're just the first. And that first only comes about because of a time space confluence where you're in the right time, the right place with the right skills to do the thing to get this tiny little checkbox called you were the first. But it doesn't mean that you're the best. And so that is an important aspect of the aspirational piece. The moment that you start heading towards your aspirational execution, you're going to get some firsts along the way. And those firsts might not actually be in the pipeline that you were trying to keep tightly confined to the goal that you'd set. But along the way, you'll get some firsts and you'll get some tertiary effects as well. But that doesn't mean that you're the best. It just means that you're on your own unique path to your aspired future. And if you're kicking ass hard enough, you're going to get some wins. So it's important what Tim said. As a master sniper, highly competent, highly qualified, Tim had some firsts along the way to get there, but that never makes you the best.
Uh, and yeah, Operation Pegasus Foundation says truth. There you go. And so I'm wondering then, the little wins along the way when you aspire to something, and one of the ones I'm thinking of right now is I wanted to be a combat engineer. That was my straight up. I walked into the recruiting office. This is what I'm going to be. I'm good to go. Show me how to do it. And I had absolutely no thoughts beyond that. So once you reach the aspiration, once you hit that peak, you make it to the top of the mountain, you build your fire, you light it, you get to enjoy that view. Then what? How do you transfer, move along, shuffle to another one? Do you see another mountain on the other side and start climbing down, or do you climb down at the bottom, have to reassess, and then go look? What do you guys think, Pat?
Well, I mean, that's all part of your own personal journey, right? We all have our own, kind of whatever way you want to look at it. But, if we look at this as a school or a journey or a adventure, choose your own adventure, whatever it is, um, that's up to you internally. And to be aligned with a good aspiration is something that you will find holistic within your being. Not to get too woo woo on this, if it's you want to be a even better combat engineer, then aspire to be even a better combat engineer. If you want to transition it to something completely different, that's all within you. That's that spark again, right? You can either maintain that fire and build it bigger and continue on that aspiration to be like the best combat engineer ever, or you can, let it kind of like just, I won't say smolder out, but you can let it calm down and look at building another fire elsewhere, another mountain peak or whatever we want to go with that analogy.
I dig it. Sean, what are you thinking?
So it's important probably to establish that aspirational goals or an aspiration is kind of ephemeral initially, or nebulous maybe. It's certainly unknown. I mean, you can tell yourself in a simple sentence that I want to be the best in the dot 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 ever, whatever that thing is. And there's your aspiration. You don't know how to get there. You don't know really what it feels like or smells like or tastes like, looks like. You know nothing about it other than you've got this idea. And so the idea is the idea, and you start marching towards that idea. But along the way, as you're trying to become the best recon soldier in the world or whatever, then someone introduces another idea called, we just invented something called special operations. You want to be a member? So special operations didn't exist before in my aspirational mind. I thought, I want to be the best recon ever. But then as the new thing came along, special operations, I just thought, hang on a sec. It's not that that's an even higher level. I have just shifted my focus from recon to special operations. And so once I started pursuing special operations, in that game, you then start aspiring. I think the aspirational aspect, the general idea aspect of I want to be the best in dot, 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 whatever that is, whether you ever make it or not, doesn't much matter. But this idea of aspiring to more, that can shift along the way. It did for me because the thing that I really wanted to be wasn't actually created at a certain time until 1992 when that memo went out forces wide that said, we've got this little unit called JTF2. Do you want to be a part of it? If that hadn't have happened, I was, and this is no joke, and I've said this to Chance, I've said it to some of my friends, I was at a point in my career where I wanted more. As a young sergeant in the PPCLI, I just wanted something harder. And I have a dual citizenship. I was born in the UK. And so I was starting to look at moving to England to join that army because I wanted to have a crack at the SAS. Now, whether I would have made it or not is neither here nor there. But there was something inside of me that just wanted more. I wanted to seek the hardest thing, the bestest thing, the most ephemeral thing that I couldn't even put a finger on. I just wanted more, and I didn't know how. And because that memo in 1992 didn't exist in 1991, I was starting to look at writing a different future for myself, which included me having to leave the Canadian Armed Forces, move to another country, and pursue something that I just felt inside of me I could do. But fortunately, the memo came out. Presto changeo, I was doing that thing. And then eventually, somewhere in that path, I started to see things differently, as it can happen in an aspirational journey.
So let's dive into this then, because I like this concept is managing all the different ideas. Because I'm sure, like you guys, I get ideas all the time. Ooh, that'd be cool. Oh, that'd be nice. Oh, I'd love to do that. That looks cool. I'd love to try that. Hey, yeah, lots of ideas. How do we sort those? How do we group them into the larger aspiration, especially when you start chasing something? I'm sure, Sean, when you were riding bikes, and Pat, when you're on a film set doing your job, or Sean, when you were in a endurance race, when you're actually performing, in those moments, the aspiration is just do the thing. But in the side times, in the periods where you're not doing that thing, I'm sure lots of other options show themselves to you. So how do we sort those? How do we manage not just dabbling in this and dabbling in that and dabbling in those, keeping true to our ideas, but at the same time being open to new things? Pat, what do you got?
Well, it's interesting because I mean, you kind of like, said a key word there, like dabbling is one thing, and dabbling, having those appetizers or tasters, could, fuel yourself for a larger meal, I guess you could say. You know, when it comes to aspirations, I find that a lot of times it's it's something that continues to grow in you. It's not just like a craving. I can't explain it. It's like my aspirations to be like the photographer that I want to be, and I'll be clear too. Like it's like I don't want to be the best photographer. Like that's not part of my mantra. I want to be I want to be an aspirational. I want to be an inspirational photographer. You know what I mean? I want to just create, and I just want to involve myself in that whole process. And I'm coming back to photography just because that's my current aspiration. And there's no ambitious dogma in there. Like I need to be the best. I need to be. I want that title. I need that title of being the best photographer. I could care less. I love doing the art. I love picking up the camera. I love being part of it. I love seeing the imagery. I love seeing the imagery in my mind. Once it becomes borderline say obsession, which isn't necessarily part of the same conversation right now, but like it becomes like something like I'll be just staring out into a scene and I'll be like, I want to take a photo of that. And sometimes I can only take that photo with my mind, but I'm always aspiring to look at angles, look at light, look at everything. When we dabble in things and we see, oh, that could be a cool thing, that could be a cool thing. Again, those are sparks. And if you allow yourself to go down that avenue and you pursue it with a purpose, then it's becoming something more.
Shaun, what do you got?
Well, I think that, if you've got an aspiration, as you pursue it, it will start to evolve over time for sure. But, as these journeys go, at least for me and pretty much anyone I've ever worked with, as they get deeper into that aspirational journey, something pops up, man. Something always does. Something that is tangential to the primary pipeline that they're in. It'll just catch their eye. Maybe it's another little spark, we'll call it. And that little spark, can be a distraction for some people where they will spend too long staring at the spark and lose their way on the pipeline that they're on. So I say that carefully because it's okay to look at the spark and it's okay maybe to spend a bit of time with the spark, but not lose your sense of direction on what you determined as your aspirational pipeline. And that's where dabbling becomes dangerous. It's okay to, we'll call it dabble on the side as you're moving down the direction that you've self chosen, but not get off the track to stay with the dabbling. You can't hang out on the dabble farm instead of heading down the highway. And so I think that that's something that a person has to be really careful of. But conversely, I don't think you should be so careful that you obscure any sparks or you ignore any sparks or you don't at least glance at the dabble farm. And so you've kind of, like all things in life, you've got to have some balance. You've got to see everything around you in the 360, but you've got to stay focused on the thing that you're putting directly in front of you. I will not take contention with what Pat said because I believe we're probably on the same page, but I do want to raise the idea of obsession. I'm freaking obsessed, man, with a lot of things. And I think you've got to have some obsession to get closer to your aspiration. Coffee is an example, photography is an example, podcasting is an example. I'll use podcasting right now since we're doing it. Man, I know more about podcasting than like some corporations who are responsible for podcasting. And it's only because like I need to know. I need to know things about things and I have to research. And the more I research, the more I'm fascinated by the research, the deeper I go. Next thing you know, I've got a PhD in podcasting. It doesn't mean that I'm a good podcaster. It just means that right now, podcasting has to be done as well as I can. Therefore, I need to know things like bit rates and buffer underruns and DPC latency and this, that, and the other thing. I got to know a lot of stuff for me to sit in this chair and feel like I'm moving towards a professional podcaster. Because at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to me. Am I an amateur or am I a professional? And when I start anything new, as I used to say to all of my athletes on day one, if I let you be someone on my team, if I was coaching you on day one, in that day, that first 24 hours, you were guaranteed to hear from me. As of now, you are no longer an amateur. You are a professional. You will start thinking like one, you will start acting like one, and that's what this means right now. Dot, dot, dot. And I would lay it out. And it doesn't mean that in that moment they started making money and getting all the accolades as a professional. What they did do was change their mind on who they are. You can either think like an amateur or you can think like a professional. The moment that you start thinking like a professional and start acting like a professional, you start speeding up the velocity on your aspirational outcome. And so, um, myself, I am not a professional photographer because I don't sell any of my art. But the photo that I took yesterday on World Photography Day, the black and white, which I thought was quite good, I took that 5 minutes before I went in for Chinese acupuncture. I just threw my camera over my shoulder, drove down the trail. As I got out, I thought, I'm going to get a photo of that bad boy and just put it right up in Pat's face. And so I got the photo and I was pleased with it. But here's the important part. When I got out of my car and saw that statue, my camera was slung over my shoulder already. I left the house with the camera on my shoulder. In other words, I left my house with intention to pursue aspiration in the thing that I dig. And if it wasn't a camera, then it would have been a coffee. And if it wasn't a coffee, it would have been a bike. And if it wasn't a bike, it would have been a microphone. And if it wasn't a microphone, it would be something else that I am into. And I'm going to freaking kick that ass because I'm pursuing it hard. And I think that's what you got to do in life. You got to have some obsession with life. If you aren't obsessed with this moment, then rewire your programming.
This moment is a really nice piece of this, and I really like the fact that you said not only thinking like a professional but acting like a professional, because we had that conversation when we got started, and I was not thinking like a professional. I was not acting like a professional. Let me rephrase. I thought I was a professional. Let's put it that way, but I wasn't acting like a professional. And through that conversation, through that engagement, we started to figure out what it is. Like, what are the roles? What are the responsibilities? How is this going to work? What are we going to do? All down the way. But the aspiration was still to put together an absolute killer podcast that was going to help the people around us. And I think we've succeeded in that so far, but we're also going to succeed in that tomorrow and the next day and the next day. And we're just going to continue to aspire to that. We want to put on a kick-ass podcast that's going to help the people around us. And if we can keep that mentality moving forward, it doesn't really matter what the variables that come up next are, right? Like, sure, DPC underruns and buffer underruns and all these things that we need to manage and figure out, and audio and the video and lighting. And Shaun's got a new light in the background in case anybody notices. Yeah, but those types of variables within the aspiration come up, and you just got to continually advance them and continually engage them. That shot you did of the spider web, Shaun, was just friggin' sick. I love that one. Pat, you got any thought? What do you got?
So it was, and when I took that photo, I was actually thinking of Pat, and here's why. Because when Pat and I were hanging out at Operation Pegasus Jump on the DZ this summer, Pat, I kind of explained how I like to take photos. And Pat had said, like, he uses manual focus. And I was like, man, I hardly ever use manual focus. I just don't. I always go single focus point, so just a half button or half shutter push in order to lock in a focus on a single point. Then I hold that focus and I'll take my photo. So I don't have autofocus and I don't have manual focus. I just go on single action focus, as it were. And so I thought, man, I'm going to do a manual focus tonight and just put it right up in Pat's face again. And so these kind of things amuse me. Honestly, they do amuse me. And something Pat had said earlier in the show that I wasn't going to touch, but I'm going to touch on it now because it's relevant. He'd said that he'd left some cash on the counter up at Operation Pegasus Jump so that he would have to go back and do that jump. As I think of it, these are breadcrumbs. The breadcrumbs of life. You leave a breadcrumb trail to go back to the thing that you want to do, perhaps. And so I'm just going to grab another little breadcrumb for you in a sec. Bam. There's a little breadcrumb for you. So this is a little Sony that Pat gave me, little Carl Zeiss. And thanks, Pat. But this is a breadcrumb because I've already got a lens that is very similar to this lens. But this lens is just a bit different. Enough difference that it is intriguing to me. But the intriguing part of shaping light with this lens perhaps wouldn't be enough, because there's not enough of a difference between my two lenses for me to pick this up on a reasonably regular basis. So what's the breadcrumb? It's this. Pat gave this to me, and now I feel like I've got to learn how to drive it in a way that is acknowledging or is graciously giving a nod to my friend who was so kind to give this to me. And so that in and of itself is a breadcrumb. The breadcrumb doesn't have to be a physical object like this. It doesn't have to be cash on the bar at Operation Pegasus Jump. It can be something as simple as this. A little bit of poking and teasing of a friend at the right time, at the right place, that's a breadcrumb. The right word, the right poke, the right push is a breadcrumb. And so you don't have to spend any money at all on anyone to create some aspiration in them. You just got to use the right words sometimes.
I like that. I like that. Pat, you got any thoughts on the breadcrumbs?
Yeah, sure. And I would even want to touch a bit on amateur versus professional. Like amateur is for the love of it. I mean, that's literally the translation of it, right? And so that's part of your aspirational journey. Like, yeah, you're going to be amateur, and that's good. That's good. We put amateur like as it's like a bad thing. We put amateur as like it's like a less than. It literally means for the love of it, right? But there is a point where there will be that transition and a point where you need to adopt that professional mindset. Doesn't mean you've lost the love for it. It's that you want to take it to the next level. You want to push it further. You want to elevate it to a completely different level. And you want to be on a completely different stage of of recognition or of the world or whatever of your level up. So, you know, as you aspire to something, remember, amateur means for the love of it. So do it because you love it. But at a certain point, it won't be enough. If it's a true aspiration, just for the love of it, it's not enough. You have to flip over.
I dig it. I dig it. Tommy Guitar jumped in here on the Instagram side, says planting the seed is what I call it. And Shaun sows seeds like freaking he's in the Middle Ages, just tossing them out to the field here. It's awesome. Now we are just about an hour, and I just want to say thanks, Pat and Shaun. This has been awesome, and I know the three of us could probably just go for however long we want. For however long we wanted to, it'd be pretty awesome to sit down for 4 or 5 hours and talk about this stuff. But any final thoughts? Anything still bubbling in the back of your brain?
Before we jump into final thoughts, I want to flip the script here on you, Chance. So aspiration, I feel like Pat and I have been blasting back and forth, and you've been doing a great job sort of shaping the conversation per se. But hey, what's your thoughts on aspiration right now, Chance? And have they changed from the start of the show till now?
My thoughts on aspiration, well, yes, they have changed 100% from what I originally thought as aspiration. When we first started podcasting, especially, I was looking at it as a for the love of it deal, similar to Pat, what you were talking about. Everything was about, I started podcasting because I just saw people needed help. There were lots of people out there that didn't have any information, and I was like, man, the internet is available. I'm going to start putting information out to the world. And it was just for the love of it. I wanted to help. And now, not only do I want to help, that has been maintained, that aspiration has been maintained, but it has been focused, it's been fine-tuned. It's been, how am I going to help? Not just like, I'm going to help the world. Done. It's, how am I going to help? How do I present a fully formed, functioning human being? How do I let go of certain labels? How do I apply other labels? How do I engage in podcasting as a moderator? How do I become a better orator? How do I, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? So that fine tuning of the aspiration is where I'm still in the process of it, and I think that it's a beautiful pursuit when you find something that you can aspire to and pursue it just to the nth degree. And I did not have that understanding when we started. It was a very vague, broad, I just want to help. And now
So,
I'm now
is
I'm
it
going to help.
even vaguer now, or um, is it more directed now?
I'd say the concept is much more directed. Now I know how I'm going to help, not just that I am going to help. I know how, and it's going to come through the passing on of information, which actually ties into Shaun. You asked me a long time ago, what is my why? Why am I doing this? How am I? What's the point? And I came up with the fact that I'm a facilitator at heart. That's what I want to do. Is how do I get people from A to B? And that is why I do these things now. So the aspiration has, how do I get better at that? How do I become a better facilitator? Well, I have to be able to speak really well. I have to be able to present really well. I have to be able to transfer thoughts. I have to be able to come up with new allegories and new metaphors and different ways of presenting information to other people. And it's been a super fun journey so far.
Is it fair to say then that, on the show we pretty regularly repeat this sort of it is this that hey, don't accept any labels that anyone gives you. If someone says that you've got PTSD, like freaking tear that label off and get to work. So these labels that we take on, whether it's medical or psychological or intellectual or whatever the case is, the label that we put on ourselves, we commonly say, like, take the labels off. But in this case, as a guiding light, the idea of Chance wanting to be a facilitator as a loose label has helped him shape his direction a little more focused, and his velocity, his intention, a little more intentionality, by simply choosing a label called "I want to be a better facilitator." That has been enough for us, me, Chance, to see the improvements in his professional work as a podcaster. So, we're saying take the labels off, but at the same time, when we're talking aspirational, you almost need a loose label to pursue into. Yeah.
I would definitely agree with that. And I think the this is where the trouble is that if you think about like flex tape, the infomercials where they like slap the friggin' tape on to close the water off from pouring out. I think that's what most people use labels as, is that it's just a bang, problem solved, and they never have to look at it again. And I see now that labels, at least for myself, they're the things that you need to explore. Like, if I want to be a facilitator, what does that even mean? What is a facilitator? How do I facilitate? And then not just how does anybody facilitate? How do I facilitate? How to then make it better? So I like where you're going with that, Shaun. That's a great point.
I love the flex tape, by the way. One last piece then. So this is for the audience, not for us, but it is for us. It's for everyone, I suppose. If you are categorizing a label as "I want to be a better facilitator," and now your job is to become that, if you aren't doing the research, if you aren't engaging in your own aspirational self-titled label called the world's best facilitator, then is it not your friend's job? Is it not the people who are around you to like encourage you in any fashion to like shore up your ability to then somehow, one step, 12 steps later, somehow figure out how to do it by yourself? Because you might have the label, you just don't know how to do it. Sometimes it takes a poke in order for the person to then be able to do it. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Not only does it require a poke, sometimes it requires a kick in the ass. Sometimes it requires a push off a cliff. And sometimes it requires just a kind word on the side of the road. Like, I think that these types of aspirations, when people want it, yes, you have to, as a good friend, as somebody that wants to see someone else succeed, you're going to have to poke them, you're going to have to kick them, you're going to have to cajole them, you're going to have to talk sweetly to them, all these things. But then that is your personal aspiration of how you're going to help that person. And like Shaun, we've had many talks about coaching, but that's really what it comes down to is then you got to start to weave and wind and see what works for this person, what's not going to work for that person. And is this particular, and they become boutique to each person, as you say. But yes, as a good friend, absolutely have to. Pat, what do you think?
Um, look, I'm going with the idea of final thoughts here because I know we're at the end of the time. But the one thing that I kind of wanted to point out is you guys were talking about it. We're talking about all these things. We're talking about definitions. Don't be afraid to like actually, philosophically go down the rabbit hole of what that title is. Like I love the fact that you do need to sometimes have a loose title in order to inspire to something. So, when I think photographer, like you could think of like a person like camera, picture, click. Like I think about shaping light. I think about capturing light. I think about the philosophy of light. I think about how I am light. I think about how the world is light. And so I end up going down this huge, almost spiritual journey of kind of pulling apart that whole title in a sense in order to create more inspiration and to aspire more into my photography. Like, and I'll get a bit technical here. Right now I'm shooting with my light my it's not my light meter, but my brain's not working, but I'm on highlight weighted. So basically my camera's telling me is protecting my highlights. So I actually end up shooting almost 2.5 stops darker, underexposed a lot of my images because I just want like that sliver of light coming over top of a car, over top of a branch. I want everything else to be dark because I want to just capture and shape that particular light. And that's another reason why I sent Shaun uh flashes because we talked. He's like, I really like natural light. And it's like, yes, we all love natural light and we're all trying to replicate natural light. So how can I shape that light? How can I control that light? How can I make that light not look like a flash? How can I make that light not look like a flashlight? How can I make it look like it was part of the scene? Right. And so that becomes a whole different thing when you're trying to pull that apart.
I dig that. Well, on that note, do you want to use that as a final thought, or do you have any other final thoughts?
No, that was my final thought.
That
Yeah.
was final thought. Okay, I just wanted to make sure, just in case there was something else bubbling in there. Shaun, how about
No.
yourself? Final thoughts? Oh, you're still muted.
Sorry about that. Aspirationally, my goal is to not be the best podcaster in the world. It is to create a podcast in conjunction with my friends that is the best in the world. And so, will it ever be? Probably not. But at least I got a goal. And the goal will head us in the right direction where it starts making good things happen for other people. And ultimately, that's the central pillar of this podcast is to help others seek betterment, become better versions of themselves. And if they become better versions of themselves, then we all become better versions of it. And so that is my jam, is create a better world. And our podcast may only ever see, I don't know, 3,000 subscribers, 10,000 subscribers, who knows. But that doesn't change my central aspiration to be as helpful as I can, as we can on this podcast. So, though it may never be great, it's great enough right now that I am pleased with my aspirational journey.
It is acceptable, as you would say. I don't have a lot to add. I have one piece that is it's a bit of a side note, but it is exactly what we're talking about. So, 17 years ago, in 2008, on this day, we lost three awesome dudes: Shaun, Steven, and Dustin. And it is in their memory that I aspire to be the best man I can be. And I think that by having these little markers, many years ago, this would have been a really hard, horrible day for me, and I would be down in the dumps. I would have made it all about me. But I make it for them now. And these days are aspirational for me, where I can really seek to be better for them because they're not around. And I just wanted to throw that in there before we shut her down for the day. So
Hey, and I just want to confirm that in the past on this day, like the times that Chance and I have been together in a podcast and this moment has come up, uh, you never really managed it that well in the past. And by that I mean like you were really struggling with the moment. But now, like I mean, just as you said, I wouldn't change a word as to what you just delivered because I feel inspired through your aspiration. That was an inspirational little moment in the podcasts, which you couldn't have delivered a year ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago for sure. And so, what is interesting for anyone who's listening right now, in case you didn't see what just happened, aspiration requires you to be inspired by something, and that inspiration can turn you into a better, inspiring person. Your aspiration will create aspirations for others. I just watched that moment and I'm freaking inspired, man. And I now know that there's areas in my life for moments like that I got to do a little bit better. And so, thank you, Chance.
my pleasure. And as we all continue to learn, build, and grow, we'll see y'all next week. Chimo.
Chimo.
Thanks everybody for watching and being part of the collective. If this has sparked any thoughts or resonated with you, let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us grow and keeps the conversation going. We'll see y'all next time.